You press a phone button and feel it, yet nothing touches your skin. Vibrations trick the brain into believing a solid click exists. How can a buzz create a tactile illusion? The secret is hidden inside the motor. Now that we know vibrations can fake a click, let's look at how our skin and brain work together to make it feel real. The key players are tiny pressure sensors called mechanoreceptors, especially Pacinian corpuscles, which fire when they sense rapid vibration. These signals travel up the spinal cord to the thalamus and finally to the somatosensory cortex, where we interpret touch. When you tap a phone screen, nothing physically moves, yet your brain still feels a click. That feeling comes from tiny vibrations called haptic feedback. These vibrations mimic the pressure of a real button. The brain interprets them as tactile input. It uses prior experience to fill in missing motion. This trick lets us interact with touchscreens smoothly. But why does our nervous system accept this illusion? Because it relies on timing and intensity cues. Understanding this helps design better user interfaces. These cues are calibrated to match the force of a real button press. Pause 0.8's haptic feedback is a tactile signal that simulates touch. When you press a virtual button, the device vibrates. The vibration mimics the resistance and give of a real key. Your brain interprets this motion as a physical interaction. This trick relies on the skin's mechanoreceptors detecting pressure. The smartphone uses a small motor to create oscillations. These oscillations travel through the casing and reach your fingertips. Sensors in the phone calibrate frequency and amplitude for realism. Thus, haptic feedback bridges the gap between digital and physical. It enhances usability by providing immediate sensory confirmation. Pause 0.8. When you press a button, skin cells called mechanoreceptors sense the pressure. These receptors convert mechanical force into electrical impulses that travel along nerve fibers. The signals first enter the dorsal column of the spinal cord for fast transmission. They ascend through the medulla and reach the thalamus, the brain's relay station. In the thalamus, the impulses are sorted and sent to specific cortical areas. The somatosensory cortex processes the location and intensity of touch. This pathway allows you to feel a button as if it were physically present. Haptic feedback devices mimic this natural flow by stimulating mechanoreceptors directly. By matching timing and force, they trick the brain into perceiving real contact. Understanding this sequence helps engineers design more convincing virtual interfaces. Pause 0.8. When a button is pressed, a brief vibration travels through the skin. This vibration has a high frequency, typically around 200 to 300 Hz. Pacinian corpuscles, deep cutaneous receptors, are tuned to detect such rapid changes. They convert mechanical pressure into electrical signals that the brain interprets. The signal travels via the dorsal column pathway to the somatosensory cortex. Here it is matched with visual cues, reinforcing the perception of a click. Because the vibration mimics the natural feel of a physical button, the brain accepts it as real. The timing of the pulse is critical. Too slow and the sensation feels sluggish. Too fast, and the signal may be perceived as noise rather than a click. Thus, designers calibrate frequency and amplitude to achieve an authentic tactile cue. Pause 0.8. When you press a virtual button, the device sends a quick burst of vibration. The vibration starts almost instantly, mimicking the physical contact you feel on a real switch. This onset feels like a solid hit, even though nothing is physically moving under your finger. After the peak, the vibration quickly fades, giving the illusion that the button has been released. The brain interprets this rapid rise and fall as a discrete event, not a continuous sensation. Studies show that reaction times to haptic cues are similar to those for actual tactile taps. When the vibration decays within 50 milliseconds, users report a clear button press experience. If the decay is too slow, the sensation feels like a continuous buzz rather than a click. The graph below pairs amplitude over time with reaction latency data to illustrate this principle. Notice how the sharp peak aligns with the fastest response, confirming the timing trick works. Pause 0.8. A spring-loaded button pushes back when pressed. The resistance feels like a real mechanical push. Vibration motors, by contrast, shake the surface instead. They give a buzzing sensation but no true force. Your brain interprets vibration as effort, yet it is weaker. Force feedback delivers a tactile cue that matches the expected load. This alignment between expectation and sensation makes the button feel authentic. Vibration can be useful for alerts but falls short for precise interaction. When designing interfaces, choose force when realism is critical. Use vibration for secondary notifications where subtlety suffices. Pause 0.8's haptic buttons give a sense of touch in digital worlds. In gaming, they let players feel button presses on a controller. The vibration mimics the resistance of a real mechanical switch. VR headsets use subtle pulses to simulate pressing virtual joysticks. Smartphones employ haptic feedback when you tap icons or keys. Industrial controls rely on tactile cues to prevent operator errors. The feedback is calibrated so the sensation matches expected force. This alignment builds trust, making users feel confident in their actions. Across all devices, haptic design bridges the gap between virtual and physical. Thus, a simple vibration can transform an interface into a tactile experience. Pause 0.8's haptic devices use vibration motors that generate mechanical waves at specific frequencies. The human skin contains mechanoreceptors that respond best between 20 and 200 Hz. When a motor exceeds this range, the receptors cannot follow the rapid oscillations, so the sensation weakens. Some users have lower tactile thresholds, meaning they feel vibrations at very low amplitudes. For these individuals, high-frequency signals may be too faint to register, creating a false sense of button absence. Conversely, very low frequencies can produce a dull buzz that feels like a different type of feedback altogether. The chart below plots frequency against perceived intensity for thick and thin skin samples. Notice how the curve drops sharply beyond 250 Hz for thicker skin. This illustrates why designers limit haptic output to the sweet spot where most users feel a crisp click. Ignoring these limits can lead to inconsistent button experiences across diverse populations. Pause 0.8's haptic feedback uses tiny motors to create the illusion of touch. When a button is pressed, the system sends a brief vibration. The brain interprets this signal as resistance and shape. Future designs will use multi-axis actuators for richer motion. These devices can bend in 3 dimensions, mimicking real buttons. AI algorithms learn user preferences to adjust force on the fly. An adaptive vibration system changes intensity based on context. A flexible haptic glove maps these signals across the hand. Together they produce a convincing sense of depth and texture. Such technology will make virtual interfaces feel almost tangible. Pause 0.8's haptic feedback uses tiny motors to press the skin with a brief pulse. The pulse mimics the pressure of a real button by matching its force profile. Skin receptors called Merkel cells detect sustained pressure, while Pacinian corpuscles sense vibration. When the actuator reproduces both pressure and microvibration, the brain interprets it as a physical click. Neural pathways carry this signal to the somatosensory cortex, where the sensation is mapped. Engineers design actuators with low latency so the pulse arrives within 10 milliseconds of the user's touch. This timing aligns with the brain's expectation for a tactile response, reinforcing realism. Materials such as silicone pads dampen excess vibration, preventing an artificial feel. By calibrating force and frequency, designers can create distinct button sounds for different functions. The combination of biology and engineering produces a convincing illusion that the device is physically present. Pause 0.8 now that you understand how haptic feedback tricks the brain. You can put this knowledge into practice. Try a simple device, your phone, a game controller, or a smartwatch. Press the virtual button and feel the simulated click. Notice how your brain registers that sensation as real. To deepen your insight, scan the QR code below. It opens a curated list of research articles on tactile illusion. You'll also find open-source projects you can build yourself. Experiment with different vibration patterns and observe how perception shifts. Share your findings in online forums or academic groups. Remember, the brain adapts quickly to new sensory cues. Pause 0.8's vibrations mimic a solid click by stimulating Pacinian corpuscles, sending rapid signals through the dorsal column to the thalamus and somatosensory cortex. Timing and frequency shape perception, while force feedback offers an alternative but often less precise tactile experience.